The Draconians Empire, very large reptilian race, have the royal lineage or the heirs to universe. The Uban, also designated Alpha Draconis, is a star, or star system, in the constellation of Draco. A relatively inconspicuous star in the night sky of the northern hemisphere, it is historically significant as having been the North Pole star from the 4th to 2nd millennium BC. Even though Johann Bayer gave the Uban the designation Alpha, its apparent magnitude of 3.65 means it is 3.7 times fainter than the brightest star in the constellation, Gamma Draconis, Eltanen, whose apparent magnitude is 2.24. The Draconians are a very large reptilian race, otherwise known as the Dracs. There is royal line of the reptilian race called the Chakar. They range from 14 to 22 feet tall and can weigh up to 1,800 pounds. They do have winged appendages and they are awesome beings. They're extremely clairvoyant and extremely clever, and they can also be extremely sinister, and they have very long tails and have 2 hearts under the armpits and a large liver. They have the strength of 12 to 16 men. The Draconian races survives best on hot, desert planets. The Draconis race is probably the most misunderstood. I have witnessed a deep respect for this race which is generated out of admiration and fear. The Draconians are the oldest reptilian race in our universe. Their forefathers, somewhere in our most ancient past, came to our universe from another separate universe and or reality. When this actually occurred no one really knows. The 11, Council of 11, have said that the Draconians themselves aren't clear how or when they themselves got here. But what is interesting is that they declare and teach to the masses that they were in this universe first, before humans beings, and that they are the true heirs to this universe. Most, if not all, human races don't recognize this claim as truth, but, nonetheless, they don't debate the issue with them either. Alpha Draconians have colonized many star systems and have created many races by genetically altering the life forms that they encountered. The most densely populated area of subraces of Draconians is the constellation of Orion, Rigel, and the star system known as Capella. Here lies a very dangerous part of the universe for human beings. The mindset or consciousness of the majority of the races in this region is service to self, and as such they are always subverting, invading and manipulating less advanced races using their technology for control and domination. This is a very old and ancient war with the peace that does exist always being tested by these beings that believe that fear rules and love is weak, that the less fortunate are meant to be slaves. This belief system is created at birth in the reptilian races, as the mother, at the time of birth, will hide the young and then abandon them to fend for themselves. Most of the time they are cared for by the warrior class that uses the children for games of combat and amusements. They believe that in their ways that if the young ones survive they were meant to, and in the process they have had to fight all the way, and at a young age they are full warriors, used to depending on no one. Alpha Draconians are very suspicious of all life forms including their own, but not of course to the extent that they would be of humans. They are taught that Draconian history of the Great Galactic War. The version or opinion that the humans were at fault for the invasion of the universe and how we selfishly wanted the Draconian race to starve and struggle for the basic materials for their society to exist. Therefore they are brainwashed at a young age, just like we humans have done to our younger generations by all human races in the galaxy. The Alpha Draconians, a reptilian race composed of master geneticists, tinker with life, which from their perspective exists as a natural resource. The Draconians look at life forms which they have created are altered as a natural resource. Apparently, the Alpha Draconians created the primate race, which was first brought to Mars and then to Earth. The primate race was then tinkered with by many other different races, 21 other races, resulting in the primate race having been modified 22 times.
This primate race eventually became Homo sapiens sapiens. Who we are on a physical level. Yes, we used to have 12 strands of DNA. 10 strands were taken out by a group from Orion in order to control us and hold us back. Why would they want to hold us back? The reason the Orion group wanted to hold us back was because they found out who we were on a soul level. Again, According to the Andromedans, we humans are part of a group of energies that they know of as the Patal. The reason that the Andromedans use the word Patal, which is by the way a Draconian word, is because the Draconians have legends about warring with a race that was creating human life forms that were opposed to Draconian philosophy. The Patal created life forms that could evolve on their own, with free expression. The Draconians, on the other hand, created races to function as a natural resource for their pleasure. So, you have two very different philosophies. Alpha Draconians, the hierarchy in our galaxy. There are two schools of thought in our galaxy. There are the regressives, who are races that carry fear and because of that want to control others. The hierarchy of the regressive starts with a group from Alpha Draconis. The Andromedans have no idea where the Alpha Draconians came from, but what they have learned through interaction with other dimensional races is that somebody brought the Draconians to this universe and dumped them in the Alpha Draconis system, where they had the highest probability of survival. According to the Andromedans, the Alpha Draconians have had space travel for 4 billion years. They are an incredible race and have achieved great things, but they are bullies. They are jerks, and that's a judgment. I'm taking that judgment myself. That's my judgment based on what I know about them. The Draconians do not like human beings. The Andromedans say that Draconians believe that this universe was here for them, that their history teaches them that they were left here to rule it. But, when they started traveling, they ran across other races. They were able to conquer many of those races through genetic manipulation. Now, our government, the United States government, the New World Order, whatever you want to call it, wants to implant everybody. From the Andromedan perspective that means ownership. Extraterrestrial don't want to bother with that stuff, since that is not permanent. Extraterrestrials value genetics. What they do is they come in, conquer a race and genetically alter it. From that moment on, that race is genetically altered. The genetic changes alter the frequency, sound and thought patterns of the race if they move into a physical form. The best example I could give you concerns the Greys. Apparently, the Greys were much more human-looking at one time. What happened was that they, as a race, were captured 892,000 years ago while leaving Zeta 1 and Zeta 2 to go off and do their own thing. This is very common, and it is how Earth became colonized. What happened is that they got captured by a group in Orion that was already genetically altered and under control of the Alpha Draconians. According to Marini, the first thing this Draconian altered Orion group did was slaughter almost all of the females of the captured race in order to control the birth process. They then genetically altered the remaining females, so that all the children born after that were genetically altered. The males were enslaved, made to work in mines and slaughtered by the Draconian-controlled Orion group, who had absolutely no regard for life. What we know now as the Greys became a natural resource. The Draconians are commonly described as a powerful warlike alien race who hail from the Alpha Draconis star system. These reptilian aliens are said to be expert geneticists who possess a level of technology that far exceeds today's human technology, including the ability of interstellar travel. Inhabited star systems and the Draco constellation Thuban Anwar Alpha Draconis and the Typhon Giants Grimium, Ultanen. All these star systems and Draco constellation are home to the Draconian reptilian civilizations, and Thuban Anwar is the galactic capital of the Draco Empire, and also there are 7 different reptilian species in the Draconian star systems. The Draconians are described as being very tall and covered from head to toe in scales that range from green to red in color. Heavily built, these reptilians are said to be a violent race whose culture is based heavily on war. The Draconians don't particularly have patience for humankind and see humans as a source of nourishment. They are also blamed for a large percentage of human abductions, second only to the Greys. Physical appearance of the Chakra royalty, scaled color white or beige or dark greenish brown. Height 18 to 25 feet, weight 1,400 to 2,500 pounds. Wing appendages and a tail is usually seen. Very large golden yellow reddish to blue eyes, with vertical slit pupils. Worker/warrior, scaled white, red, blue, brown or blackish green, tailless, 4 to 12 feet tall, large slanted yellow reddish eyes, vertical slit pupils. The Draconians aren't all one and the same, they can be broken into at least 7 categories: Draconian genetic subraces, workers, scientists, commanders, warriors, priests, engineers, officers. Weight, 500-1000 pounds. The Draconians are allegedly very intelligent and are expert geneticists. The origins of the Draconians varies from source to source, however some claim that the Draconians actually created primates and even that they may have seeded reptilian life on Mars and then Earth. Sources claim that there was once a great war between the Draconians and the Lyrans, who are believed to have seeded Mars and then Earth with the human gene. It is said that the events that led up to the Great War started with a chance meeting between the Draconians and Lyran races, and after disagreements about genetics the Draconians annihilated 3 Lyran planets and turned to Lyrans, human ancestors, and the Reptilians view humans as a food source. It is believed that the Lyrans were trying to create a creature that could evolve of its own free will, and the Draconians saw this as a breach of their genetic laws, which only allowed the creation of life forms to serve as food or slaves. This is part of the reason human abductions, where the abductee has never returned, are usually said to be of Draconians nature due to humans being seen as a food source by Draconians, especially children. The idea of children being abducted by reptilian aliens may seem far-fetched, but to a believer it is anything but far-fetched. Apparently the reason why Draconians prefer the flesh of children is because their bodies aren't as polluted by toxins as an adult, and the sense of terror in a child who hasn't been desensitized cause a massive rush of adrenaline, which the Draconians apparently get a kick or rush from. The origin of the Draconians varies, that the Draconians came from another universe and were dumped in our universe by other beings. Some details do recur from source to source, however, such as the Draconians currently populating the Alpha Draconis system and that they are trying to suppress human advancements in technology, although the reasoning behind this is unclear.
For the most part, we are dealing with another species that is humanoid in shape, but reptilian in heritage. Their leader elite are the Draco. They even have special wings, which are flaps of skin, supported by long ribs. These can be folded back against the body. They are also known as the dragon race, and their symbology usually includes the winged serpent. There are elements of their species which do not have wings. The warrior caste and scientists have none. They are all cold-blooded and have to have a balanced environment to maintain body temperature. The 7 to 10 feet tall warrior caste of the species can bury themselves in the ground and wait long periods of time in order to ambush their enemy. If need be, they can survive on one very large meal every few weeks or even once a year, and they are very muscular and aggressive. They are apparently feared throughout the galaxy for their fighting abilities. As a species, they are well suited for space travel due to their ability to hibernate. These reptilians have scales which protect them from moisture loss. They have no sweat glands. The scales, scutes, are much larger on their backs, making the skin waterproof. The scales elsewhere on the body are more flexible. They have 3 fingers with an opposing thumb, and some others have 6 fingers and an opposing thumb that have sharp claws. The eyes are cat-like and large. They have twin nostrils at the end of a short stubby muzzle. They are mostly meat eaters. The mouth is more like a slit, but they have teeth which are differentiated into incisors, canines, and molars. Their feet have 3 toes and 1 recessed fourth that is toward the backside of their ankle. The winged chakar, Draco, have white or beige scales or dark greenish brown. They also have very long tails and have horns, and they look like a dragon. The Draconians live in hydrogen-based ecosystems on desert planets. The Draconians survive best on desert planets and they like it hot. The Draconians breathe hydrogen and are very large. They are 14 to 22 feet tall and have a large liver and 2 hearts under their armpits, and have the strength of 12 to 16 men, and are very hard to kill and can weigh up to 1,800 pounds and eat human flesh. The average lifespan of the Draconians extends from 1,800 to 4,100 years of age. The ones that live as long as 4,100 years are the royal line of the Draconians, the Winged Chakars. The Draconian Empire originated on Thuban, Alpha Draconis, and consists mainly of various groups of reptilian and dinosaur-like species, but humanoid worlds have joined, too, some forcefully, some willingly. Its most important members are based in Alpha Draconis, Epsilon Boötes, Zeta 2 Reticuli, Polaris, Rigel, Orion, Bellatrix, Orion, Betelgeuse, Orion, Capella, Alpha Orgi, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. It works closely together with the Orion Empire, with whom it shares a common agenda. The Orion Empire is one of two famous, or infamous, empires in our part of the galaxy, the Draconian Empire being the other. The Orion Empire is more recent than the Draconian Empire. It was established soon after the vegans engaged in space exploration, and encountered reptilian civilizations with whom they shared a common agenda of colonization, imperialism, and service to self. It consists of a mixture of reptilian and humanoid civilizations. The majority of these reptilian civilizations are genetically manipulated half-breeds of the Oriental Draconian race, whereas most of the humanoid civilizations are of Lyran or vegan descent. Approximately 1 in every 6 worlds in the Orion constellation has a reptilian population. Negative ET manipulators, Orion groups, Greys, Reptilians, Insectilians, hybrids, are ruled by the Orion Reptilian Queens. The Orion Group is a Draconian-controlled and manipulated regressive extraterrestrial political body that is specifically made up of 18 different star systems within the Orion constellation. Prominent members of this consortium are from Beta, Alpha and Gamma Orionis, as well as groups who are from Ursa Minor and Ursa Major, who are strongly associated with it. The races consist of a mixture of reptilians, humans, hybrids and other species. The Orion Consortium, consisting of 19 different races from the constellation of Orion along with the Draconians and Syrian bees, is directly involved with the manipulation of humanity. Living inside our planet 100 to 200 miles under the surface are 1837 reptilians who have been here a very long time, 17 humans from Sirius B, and 18,000 Grey clones inside the Earth and on the Moon. Most of the 2,000 original Greys are on Phobos, one of the moons of Mars, which is an artificial satellite. There are also around 141 Orion beings inside the Earth from 9 different races. There are a lot of bad boys here who have technology thousands of years ahead of us. It is estimated that Grey technology is 2,500 years ahead of us. The Orion Group who control the Greys have technology approximately 3,700 years ahead of us. Nobody really knows how far the Draconians are, because they are incredibly elusive. The group from Sirius B are approximately 932 years ahead of us. Alpha Draconians, the Greys and the Orions, some are full reptilian. What I mean by reptilian is that they look like a lizard. Very tall. The 7.5 to 8 feet, some of them get as high as 12 to 13 feet. They can weigh up to as much as 1,000 pounds. They are incredibly quick, they are incredibly psychic. They have the reptilian eyes or the cat eyes. They are carnivorous or vegetarians, it all depends on how long it's been for them. They are arid animals, desert animals. They prefer the desert. They are warriors.
Some of the other Orion groups are half human half reptilian. In other words, they may look human with the same features but they have a reptilian skin. Some of them are very human, but they will have gray features. There's a lot. The Orion group, their big thing was genetics. That's really their forte, and then they learned how to fight. But their real forte was genetics. And they genetically alter and tinker with everything that they get their hands on. They make it their own. Based on the claims of numerous contactees, it would seem that Orion was once an extension of the Solar Lyra Alliance. However, the Grey and Reptilian species began to increase in the Orion systems, as it was apparently the Greys that succumbed to the hive-like control of the Reptilians in Alpha Draconis and Orion. Using the Greys as mind-controlled mercenaries, the major Nordic world in Rigel was attacked by the Draco, Grey Orion Reptilian Alliance. Many of the Nordics who escaped fled to Procyon, to the Jovian moons of the Sol system, and apparently to Sirius A, which has been at war with the 6 Draconian-controlled Orion star systems ever since. The human colonial worlds in Lyra were also attacked by the Draco, with 3 worlds being devastated. However, many human refugees escaped and eventually colonized systems in the outskirts of Lyra, such as Vega, the Pleiades, Hyades, and the stars Tishti and Zeniti in the Andromeda constellation of this galaxy. The Draconian attacks on Lyra came before the Draconian, Grey takeover of the Orion systems. Eventually the Draco, Grey Alliance in more recent times had conquered the Procyon civilization, whose ancestors they had in earlier times driven out of the Rigel system. Much as is occurring on Earth, the Procyons were baited by a technological, cultural exchange treaty which was in fact used by the Dracs and the Greys as a Trojan horse to facilitate the infiltration and ultimate conquest of the Procyons' home world. The Procyon rebel fleet which escaped the attack joined up with the Andromedans, some progressive Pleiadians. The Pleiades open cluster actually consists of over 200 stars which ultimately revolve around the central star of the cluster, Alcyon. Our own star Sol being one of them. So there are reputedly many Pleiadian space cultures. And some non-interventionist forces in Tau Ceti and Epsilon Eridani. All of these claims have been relayed by more than one contactee source, in a manner which seems to coincide with similar accounts and suggests the reality of an emerging tapestry of cosmic history in this sector of the galaxy. Refer to the numerous links within this report for further details on the above. Anyway, the Procyons, with the help of their allies in some of the more non-interventionist federations, have reportedly regained their world and put an end to Draconian or Rigelian domination there, and have joined with the above-mentioned fleets in an effort to establish a blockade of the Sol system in an attempt to keep incoming Draconian craft from reaching Earth and joining up with their subterranean counterparts for the purpose of reinforcing the infiltration and ultimate invasion of the surface of planet Earth from below. This blockade has reportedly been broken through by the Dracs on several occasions. However, the Federation forces and the native Solarian forces based on or in other planets and satellites of the Sol system, have allegedly fought valiantly. And there have reportedly been great losses on both sides. To add to this, one planet in Sirius B has allegedly fallen under the control of the Draco-Orion Alliance, and this among other things has provoked an intense civil war in Sirius during the closing years of the 20th century. 3 objects, actually carrier ships from Alpha Draconis, Rigel Orion and Sirius B, reportedly entered the Sol system in Hyle-Bopp's cometary tail, and according to contactee Alex Collier jumped ship near Mercury. An odd fact about Comet B's occultation of the star Algol in 1999 was the odd fact that 2 previous comets, Hyle-Bopp and Hyakotake, both occulted the same star 1 year apart, and on the same day. Just exactly what this means is unclear, although some sources have offered some pretty interesting speculations. There are even reports of a massive Alpha Draco, Rigel Orion, Sirius B fleet en route to planet Earth, in spite of the Syrian civil conflicts. Some of these craft are reportedly upwards of 500 miles in length. I have it on pretty reliable authority that the original idea for the TV miniseries V came from an individual who lived in Hollywood at the time and who was doing some serious investigations into the Dulce, New Mexico underground base. This individual had shown a draft of a movie script which he had written, to an NBC employee in confidence. However, this exact idea, even down to the plot involving reptilians from Sirius B masquerading as humans in order to harvest planet Earth of its human, animal, and mineral resources, just happened to surface in NBC's V series. The original source holds no grudges though. He thought that they did an excellent job on the miniseries.
The Nordics and Rigel, after massive infiltration by Draconian forces, wage a desperate war against Reptilian and Grey forces. The surviving Nordics are forced out of the Orion open cluster and take refuge on the Jovian moons of Sol, in Sirius A, and in Procyon. Other humanoids flee to the outer Orionite systems, yet because of their close proximity to the Central Empire must capitulate much of their sovereignty over to the Draconian Collective. These peoples are used by the Collective to serve the Empire in a similar fashion as peasants serve a king or dictator, yet on a much larger and more tragic scale. The Orion cluster is now fully controlled by the Orion group, which in turn serves under the authority of the Alpha Draconian Empire, Rigel, Betelgeuse and Bellatrix, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor being major centers of Orionite power. This sub-empire of Orion consists all in all of 6 Orionite star systems at the core, which have succeeded in conquering and subduing several worlds throughout this sector of the galaxy in order to feed their empire's parasitical lust for conquest. Many of these worlds are slave planets where descendants of human colonials live, although their horrifying existence could probably not be considered living. The atrocities of the Draco-Orion Empire are known throughout the whole galaxy and has earned itself the title, among many of their Federation enemies, of the Unholy Six. Devastating battles are waged between the Plutons and Orionites. Whole worlds are devastated. The conflict between the Plutons and the Orionites is now focusing on planet Earth, which with its strategic location and resources and central role in galactic history is the key to the success or failure of either side. The Sirians, many of whom are descended from refugees from Rigel Orion, begin a long history of interstellar conflict with the Orionites over the disputed sector of space, a star cluster in the immediate vicinity of Sol, containing some 21 life-bearing star systems and 287 inhabited worlds. Draco-Orion-backed Armada, with battleships upwards of 50 miles long, leaves Sirius B at sublight speeds in order to maintain third-dimensional integrity. Their destination is the Sol system, where they intend to help enforce an electronic New World Order dictatorship that human agents of the Draco-Orion-Sirius Alliance, who are members of international banking fraternities, have been implementing on Earth from their bases.
The Draconians were a race of reptilian humanoids from Draconia. They built an empire so large it rivaled even Earth's own empire. Despite this, the two largely coexisted with both races believing strongly in high morals and honor. The Draconians were a tall, reptilian species. They had pointed ears and bulging foreheads. They had scaly skin on their necks and bodies. Strands of their DNA were found in the DNA of the chicken-like animals encountered by Bernice Summerfield. Unlike most other humanoid species, Draconians had 2 stomachs. The Draconians' interstellar empire was a monarchy, led by the Emperor and his court of nobles. Former emperors, known as the Deathless Emperors, were kept in orbit of Draconia. There could be several princes at the same time. Respect was expected towards superiors. Before speaking to the emperor, nobles asked to speak, bowed and kissed the emperor's claws, then said, "My life at your command." Lower classes and women were not allowed to speak to the emperor at all, though by the time of the Galactic Federation women had more rights. Draconians had no freedom of speech. Only nobles were allowed to express opinions publicly. In general, nodding was expected when talking to a superior. The Draconians were a very formal race, known for their adherence to rules and traditions. They believed that rules were made to be followed. Draconians also believed that men should not show sadness or cry. They had a strong sense of honor, symbolized by their weapons. Like a million other worlds right across the universe, Draconia had the representation of the horned beast in its myths and legends. The beast claimed to be this devil, along with all of the others in every religion which had such a figure. Mr. Smith told Luke Smith that Draconia was one of many worlds in the universe which had developed a form of astrology, but, in the 34th century Salamanca said that Draconians had no astrology. Draconians also played a chess-like game with Sisu. Houses had curved walls and no straight lines, and were colored green. A typical Draconian clothing style was black robes with high pointed shoulders. Nobles like the prince and ambassadors wore a large green crystal hanging around their necks. Their emperor, whose shoulder plates rose to the highest peaks, wore a blue crystal. Draconian Branca was a drink that made the consumer think they had courage, although that was not actually the case, and could be fatal in large doses. The Draconians also made sake. In the 26th century, the Draconians used battle cruisers. These were large, imposing ships covered in guns and carrying neutronic missiles. They used hand weapons similar to those of humans. Draconians also had a form of land cruiser. The Draconians made use of hybrid Draconian war sorasses. Draconian swords were made from the finest steel in their galaxy, as were shurikens, small blades carried in sets by warriors. In 102, the Draconian were among the races who joined the Alliance. They came to Stonehenge and helped imprison the 11th Doctor in the Pandorica in order to save the universe. The Avenonians fostered some Draconians as though they were their own race. Mabe found Draconian DNA in an Avenonian egg. In the year 1645, an outbreak of screeths was discovered. The Time Lords dispatched the 7th Doctor to enlist allies to stop the infection. After telling the Draconians, they decided to adopt the Scorched Galaxy policy, which involved obliterating any worlds that developed signs of infection. The Doctor later regretted this, though he managed to prevent the infection from spreading. In the early 21st century, the MI6 branch Wonderland had an agent by the name of Jabberwock who was investigating the Draconians and reported back with no evidence of hostile intent to home shores. Hugo Wilding, head of the branch, stated that it made a pleasant change. In the reign of the 15th Emperor, during the 21st century, Draconia suffered from a plague. The second Doctor came to the planet and cured the plague. He was commemorated in a painting in the Emperor Palace. He was also granted the rank of noble. When Sam Jones went missing in the 22nd century, the 8th Doctor lodged a missing person report with the Draconian authorities. By the 25th century, the Draconians had spread out from their home planet and dominated the galaxy. Theirs was the largest empire, rivaled only by the Earth Empire. As the two empires were on the opposite sides of the galaxy, there was an agreement to avoid each other and only attempt to colonize planets on their sides, with a buffer zone between. In 2417, the Draconians were involved in a war with Earth. In 2487, two Draconians were at New Memphis. In the 25th century, the Doctor was in a high-stake poker game with the Draconian. The Doctor won a plan in the Magellanese system. He gave it to the Earth colonies but retained nominal ownership. To decide on the buffer zone between the Earth and Draconia, a neutral planet was chosen for discussion in 2520. The Earth ambassador attended, along with John Williams and the future president of Earth. The ship ran into a neutron storm. Most of the crew was killed, leaving Williams in charge. When he arrived at the planet, he was panicked by the armed Draconian ship and attacked it. With the Draconian peace convoy killed, the Draconians declared war, leading to a war which only lasted 3 days but had over 500 million casualties. By 2540, there was an uneasy peace between Draconia and Earth. The Daleks intended to attack the galaxy, but thought the two empires would pose a threat. Their agent, the Master, used Hypnosound and his Ogryn soldiers to attack ships, with the Hypnosound making it look like it was the opposite side who did it. The Third Doctor and Joe Grant were accidentally caught on an Earth ship when it was attacked. The device made them look like Draconians and then Draconian agents. They were brought to Earth as prisoners. They were eventually taken prisoner by the Master, who intended to bring the Doctor to the Daleks, but the ship was captured by Draconians and brought to Draconia. After the Ogrons' botched attempt to rescue the Master, the Draconians saw the truth, joined forces with the Earth Empire and pursued the Master. They participated in the Second Dalek War, which started in 2540, along with the Earth Empire and many other races. They refused to help the humans against the Daleks in the next war. In 2570, The planet Heaven was a neutral ground between the Earth Empire and the Draconian Empire. It was settled after the Dragon Wars. At the beginning of the 27th century, the Draconian Empire attempted to take back the asteroid which housed the Braxiatel collection. They found themselves at war with the Mim, until the Mim were destroyed by Hass. The Draconians, falsely accused for this crime, were blamed by all the galactic community. In the 30th century, some Draconians lived in the Minerva system. The Draconians became members of the Galactic Federation. In 3375, several Draconians, including Salamanca, worked on board the Reptilian Race. When the Dark Heart was used, the Draconians were all turned into humans. The Draconians were among several galactic powers which fought the Daleks in the Great War, which began in 4000. Towards the end of the war, they contributed to the list of Dalek disasters by annihilating half of the Dalek fleet along the Draconian frontier.
The Alpha Draconians are the oldest known reptilian race in our galaxy. They are, in fact, the only genetic line of their kind that is not extinct. When we talk about that's extinct, they have found remnants of others that came after but were extinct. Most of the reptilian civilizations that we know today, in Butes, Orion, Capella, are all genetic manipulated half-breeds of the original Chakar race. They stand 18-25 feet tall and can weigh up to 2,500 pounds. They are like Tyrannosaurus rex. They are monsters. They have black leathery brown scale bellies, they have multiple abdomens, they have whiskers along their chin and jawline. They have a mating claw and multiple tongues. I'm going to give you some very specific information. They lay eggs and what is called a battle hormone is used to accelerate the birthing process. They are a duality. This is why ancestral females did not participate in war, because if they did, there wouldn't be anybody there to help with the eggs. They also had to be there to secrete this hormone. I am only sharing with you what I know about them. Stronger young females were expected to defeat and kill older and weaker leaders in ritual combat. The Chakra race is ruled and managed by genetic lineage. Genetic lineage always follows the mother, because you always know who the mother is, you don't always know who the father is. In that particular line the gals have all the say. Ruled by the monarchy of a queen genetic lineage, they are one of the most powerful races in the galaxy. They have some of the greatest military might that has ever been seen in the galaxy, and most of the clan members are zealots and will do anything for the glory of their clans, of their lineage. They have been the chief enemy of all human races in this galaxy in past conflicts. Again, we are talking about hydrogen breathers versus oxygen breathers. They have 3 spinal columns. One spine is located ventrally near the stomach. The other 2 are located dorsally on the left and on the right of the Chakar's body. Spinal columns join near the dorsal of the geometric center at the extreme posterior of the trunk to form a long and very powerful tail. Inside of the hands are claws of the Chakar jelly-like sacs that excrete the various hormones and substances when the Chakar is aroused, either for sex or for battle. As I have reported elsewhere, numerous treaties have been made by world governments between humanity and malevolent ETs. We cannot be sure exactly when government treaties began, but certainly the first appeared to have been signed on July 11, 1934. This first treaty with the Greys from Orion occurred aboard a naval ship in Balboa. This was one of the most important events in human history because it thrust us into a role we were not prepared for as regards to being a host to a malevolent extraterrestrial race. The U.S. federal government disregarded the Constitution of the United States by doing this and not telling the people. It was here that the agreement was first made between the Greys representing the reptilians from Orion and representatives of the U.S. intelligence community. The treaty stated that in return for the Greys providing high technology, anti-gravity, metals and alloys, environment, free energy and medical technology, the government would allow the Greys to proceed unhindered with human abductions. This was only if a list of abductees was provided to the government and the abductees returned unharmed with their memories of the events erased. In 1944 the second extension of the treaty was signed. I have very little details of this. In May 1954 again under the Eisenhower administration the third extension of this treaty was signed called the Grenada Treaty. The Greys and Reptilians blatantly broke the terms of this treaty as we shall see later in this information. The Grenada Treaty was agreed upon at the Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico by the Greys and the Ultra Unit in the NSA. The original document of this treaty and the ET materials from it can be found today at the NSA facility called Blue Moon underneath Kirkland Air Force Base in New Mexico. The entrance to this underground base is in the Manzano Mountains. Also at this location is the technological base of the secretive Department of Energy, DOE. Today free energy devices developed from Grey and Reptilian technology are being built for use in space at the DOE base. On April 15, 1964 two intelligence personnel met under Project Plato with the Greys in the New Mexico desert to arrange a meeting on April 25 at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. This meeting was to renew the treaty again in a psychological bid to buy time in order to solve the problem of the Greys and Reptilians. The global drugs trade run by many factions of the global intelligence community cooperating together, MI6, CIA, Mossad etc., is worth at least £500 billion a year. This is more than the global oil trade. MI6 control many of the other intelligence agencies in the world. MI6 created the CIA in 1947 and still control them today. This Black Ops drug money, or in classic Orwellian terms, MI6 CIA non-appropriated funds, is being used to fund government and military projects classified above top secret. These operations include a huge worldwide UFO cover-up and the building and maintaining of deep underground military bases, DUMBS. There are many of these bases worldwide, but here a small list. Dulles in New Mexico. Brecon Beacons in Wales. Los Alamos in Mexico. Pine Gap in Australia. The Snowy Mountains in Australia. The Nyala Range in Africa. West of Gandu in Africa. Next to the Libyan border in Egypt. Mount Blanc in Switzerland. Narvik in Scandinavia. Gotland Island in Sweden, and many other places. These projects are being run by a secret, unelected international governing body connected to the United Nations. There are at least 1,400 of these DUMBS worldwide. 131 in the U.S. With 2 underground bases being built per year in the U.S. at the moment. The average depth of the bases are 4¼ miles underground, some shallower and some deeper. The bases are on average the size of a medium-sized city. Each dump base costs between $17 and $26 billion to build, which is funded by MI6 CIA drug money. Each underground base employs 10,000 to 18,000 workers. A nuclear-powered drill is used to dig underground. This drill goes through rock at a tremendous rate and literally melts the rock away to form a smooth glass-like surface around the edges of the tunnels. The Grey and Reptilian alien agenda is to slowly and covertly take over the planet in the next 30 years, reduce the population and run the planet from underground using the surface population as food to be taken when and how they wish. The British, Russian and US government is shooting down around 1 Grey and Reptilian craft a month with particle beam weapons developed from Tesla technology. The Russians have areas the size of football fields full of crash TT craft. If that is not a full-scale invasion, I don't know what is. The British, Russian and US government have become blood brothers and the best of friends because of the alien agenda. The Russian and US Cold War was feigned animosity and a sham so these governments could develop nuclear weapon programs to counter the alien threat. The Cold War was a lie for the public to take the attention away from what the nuclear weapons program was really being developed for, not against Russia but as a last resort against the Greys and Reptilians. The headquarters of the secret international governing body in charge of dealing with the ET phenomenon is in Geneva, Switzerland. The ruling body is made up of representatives of the governments involved as well as the executive members of the group known as the Bilderbergers. As I have said, the British, American and Russian governments are working very closely together because of the grey or reptilian threat to the planet. Although the situation is so horrendous that these governments have shattered into panicked factions, some of which have sold out and are directly helping the Greys and Reptilians. The Greys and Reptilians from Orion have been involved in an ancient war with the benevolent Pleiadians and other groups. The Pleiadians are a very powerful group and are the guardians of this solar system. I personally do not believe they will let the Grey, Reptilian agenda fully unfold.
They have helped us in the past, are helping us now and will help us in the future. The Draconians are an extraterrestrial race. They were featured in the British science fiction television series Doctor Who. Their only television appearance to date was in the 1973 serial Frontier in Space. Unlike many monster races in Doctor Who, the Draconians were articulate and portrayed as having a sophisticated and advanced culture like feudal Japan. In later interviews, John Pertwee cited the Draconians as his favorite of all the monsters he had encountered during his time as the Doctor. They were part of the alliance to trap the Doctor in the Pandorica. The Draconian Empire was a vast space-faring feudal civilization of reptilian humanoids, centered on the planet Draconia. With the society stratified along class and gender lines, for example, females were not permitted to speak in the presence of the Emperor, that was bound by a strong code of honor. The Draconian Empire dated back to at least the 21st century, when a space plague that afflicted their world was dealt with by the Doctor. For his services, the 15th Emperor made the Doctor a noble of Draconia. The Earth Empire's first contact with the Draconian Empire was in the year 2520. The ship sent by the Draconians for the peace mission was a battle cruiser, as befitted a noble of Draconia, although, as agreed, its missile banks were empty and it was otherwise unarmed. However, both Draconian and Earth ships were caught in a neutron storm, damaging the Earth ship and destroying the Draconian ship's communication systems. As a result, the Draconian ship was unable to respond to the Earth ship's signals. The commander of the Earth ship saw what he perceived to be a battle cruiser bearing down on his crippled vessel and gave the order to attack, destroying the battle cruiser and triggering off a brief but bloody war in which millions of lives were lost. An uneasy peace was negotiated in the end, leading to 2 decades of Cold War and the carving out of a frontier between the two empires. In 2540, several incidents involving attacks on cargo freighters along their respective borders nearly led to the war turning hot once more, with both sides accusing the other of piracy and violating the frontier. These attacks turned out to be the work of Ogren mercenaries under the orders of the renegade Time Lord known as a Master, who was using a sonic hypnosis device to make the Earth crews see the Ogrons as Draconians and vice versa.
So I hope you like this video. Please share our videos on Facebook with your friends. Don't forget to do like, subscribe and comments on our video.